Colin. Welcome back. We are back, the Selling Portage podcast, off of the success of our last episode, the most heavily watched episode in our short history.
Yes, and I am wearing the same shirt to advertise, and I'll likely be wearing it next week as well.
And every day in between. So what happened in the past week with you?
What happened in the past week? Let me think on that here. That's a good question.
You don't know?
I'm having some brain fog.
Okay, well, I was at the Arnold Schwarzenegger Fitness Expo.
Oh, yes.
Yes, that's where I was. So I'll tell you about that a little bit.
Okay.
One of my last major competitions, as far as I'm concerned, I'm getting to that point where, maybe I take a little bit of time away from competitive arm wrestling. So I go down there and I've put a lot into this event. And as you know, I've had some setbacks in the past couple of years with injuries and stuff, but the left arm is still where I'm pretty good. The right arm had some wars, but I think I ended up in 5th, which is fine. After having it surgically repaired less than a year ago. And then left arm, I go in, I make the top 3, and I'm to compete on Sunday. And long story short, become violently ill Saturday night and unable to attend the finals. What does that mean? Well, by default, I got bronze. And that is where my day ended.
That's a shame.
In a hotel room by myself, feeling bad. It's Ohio.
When you texted me on this Sunday morning, you and I were texting, and you had said that you weren't able to compete in the finals that day. I did feel really bad for you because I've got to know you quite well over the past few years, and I know the dedication that you put into this sport, and I know that this was your last major event for the foreseeable future anyways, and I felt really, really bad for you, and it's shitty that things came to a pause in this manner, but
yeah, there's lots of things it's like the universe is telling me it's time to move on for a little while or do something else for a while or maybe just take a break, but we'll see.
yeah.
Never over. It's just, take some time, reflect, regroup, let myself heal, make some better fitness choices for myself, get in shape a little better, and then see what happens. I mean, none of us are getting any younger, and, I will be 49 in 2025.
Wow.
So maybe the comeback is when I'm 50 and I go to world championships and compete as a grandmaster.
There you go.
And the 50 plus is grandmasters.
You got a plan. I like it.
Well, it might be a plan. We'll see.
Yeah. I do remember what I did this past week. Well, on Friday, something notable. I went to the Our Lady Peace 30th anniversary tour, which
that is interesting.
So, growing up in the late 90s, early 2000s, the Canadian rock scene was pretty prevalent, and so it was kind of neat to go see a band that I grew up listening to, and they had Collective Soul opening for them, which I really enjoyed their music as well. So it was a really cool night. I went with a buddy of mine, and it was funny because in our section of 100 people, I must have seen about 40 Portage people in our section. So,
really?
Yeah, it was great. But it was funny because my wife was supposed to go with me, and she was ill on Thursday and Friday, and I said, well, I'll see if I can find someone to go. If not, I'll just go with myself or go by myself. But I'm quite glad now that I saw how many people I knew in my section that
you didn't go by yourself.
That I wasn't there by myself.
You wouldn't have been alone anyway. You would have
No,
known
that's
everyone.
very true. That's very true.
Yeah. Well, we got a great guest coming on, Colin. I mean, we haven't
Mhm.
touched real estate yet, but um, really we haven't touched city stuff either. But we haven't had a meeting since the last show we did, so
No, that's
hasn't been a lot
true.
going on. We've both been busy. But we've got Stefanie Dunn coming on,
Exciting.
and we're going to learn a lot about her, and we're going to ask her a lot of really deeply personal questions.
Perfect. We like to put people on the spot.
We sure do.
Respectively.
Yeah. And we will continue to roll with this format for a while. It seems to be going really well. Lots of people tuned in to watch our last episode. Yeah.
Well, I had a question for you because I know that we had talked last week on the show about the spring market and how right now we're seeing a very, very low inventory numbers. I have in the last week picked up a couple more buyer clients, and I guess from your experience and your knowledge of the analytics of things, when do you foresee the spring market starting to take effect with some listings starting to pop up, multiple listings a week, like we saw this time last year?
It should be right now.
Yeah.
Should be any time now. You'll start to see that. Like I've got a few in the pipe. I've got one coming up in Portage, a really nice one in Portage on the 20th of March. I've got another one coming up, a really nice one in McGregor on the 18th of March. These are people that have pre-done photos, done all the paperwork, all that stuff. It's ready to roll, but that is the date we have selected. I can only assume that there's going to be quite a few more. I have seen the one thing you notice about this time of year is the buyers start before the sellers do, which is it's a bit of an anomaly, I would say. But a lot of the listings that have sat for a long time are now selling, and they're just being snatched up by people that need a house, and
Right.
those ones are still kicking around. People do not tend to time it perfectly ever as far as the listing goes, and that's a very difficult thing to do because we are governed by so many intangibles like what the weather is going to be like.
Right.
So if we have a really early spring, well, that could dictate when people start to see that spring market take effect.
Makes
And
sense.
on the flip side of that, if we have like a brutal spring where it's snowstorms in June, like we have had historically in Manitoba, that could put a bit of a damper on it as well.
Right.
But there is that window when people want to start looking for houses and moving. And what sellers may not realize is that somebody looking now doesn't want a house right now for the most part. They want it a couple of months from now.
Right.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. Yeah, like even this week we have two new listings. One of them is a vacant lot, and the other one is an older home in the northeast end of town. So
Yeah. Well, the vacant lots. Yeah, there's a few of those.
yeah.
Yeah.
So no, I was just kind of curious because this is I hit my 1 year on Thursday, and yeah, this is kind of new territory for me because this time last year I was a little bit of a deer in the headlights situation, and so just looking forward to getting rolling in the spring.
One other thing I will mention is that we do have an event coming up. Might be a little early to mention it now, but on March the 24th, there's actually a real cafe coming to Headingley. So we're going to take some people over there.
Cool.
And plan on that one. So I'm very flattered. They changed the date of it because they're going to have it while I was in Mexico. And they're holding off until I get back so that, well, it's either for me or Addison or maybe both of us. But neither one of us could attend the first one. So
Gotcha.
apparently they rescheduled it for us. Maybe it's just for Addison, but I'd like to think it's me too.
Yeah,
But
and probably me a little
that's what I was told. Yeah, we'll call it. Yeah.
March 24th. Okay.
March 24th. So if you're a realtor out there and you want to come and hang out with a bunch of us, it's open to all realtors, not just real broker agents. So if you want to come, give us a shout. We'll bring you.
Sounds like a plan.
Yeah. And onward, ladies and gentlemen, Stefanie Dunn. Stefanie Dunn, welcome to the Selling Portage podcast. How are you doing?
I'm great. How are you?
Well, I'm hanging in there.
Are you hanging in there? Thanks for showing up for us today, Ryan.
You're my pleasure. Thank you for showing up for us.
No problem.
It's been a long week and it's only Tuesday.
It does feel like that, doesn't it? I don't know if it's the tease of Fool's Spring, as they call it in Manitoba, but
I think that's what it is. It's kind of now it's like gloomy outside, but it's cold and windy and kind of shitty, and it's covered in ice everywhere. And yeah, I missed last week.
It's that, it's that kind of it's that time of year.
It is that time of year.
I'm not going to use any of the slang terms used to describe this time of year, but we call it seasonal depression season.
Right. When you start to see the light, both literally and spiritually, and you're like, oh, I really wasn't doing well in January. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I like that. That's deep.
That is very deep. So, Stefanie, thanks for joining us. For those that don't know, what is your title at, you take it away.
I will take it away. Yes. Thank you so much for having me. It is an honor to speak with both of you. You're both such prominent fixtures in our community and our municipality. So I appreciate all that you do. I am the current executive director of the Portage La Prairie District Chamber of Commerce. So I've been in this role since August 2023.
Yes. Now that we have that out of the way, let's dig into a little bit of the origin. Now, your name should sound fairly familiar to a lot of people in Portage La Prairie, but let's talk about you. Born and raised in Portage La Prairie?
Yep, that's right. Born and raised here. My family owns a business in the community, and so I grew up with really deep roots in Portage and the surrounding area. I was raised, to really appreciate and see the value in a circular economy. That was always a topic of discussion in our house, and it serves me well in this current role, obviously. But my parents still live here. My oldest brother still lives here, and my younger brother would love to live here, but he's a teacher, so he is kind of just going where the jobs are right now.
That's interesting. So he took a bit of a different path, but here you are. So your career path to get you to where you are now, what did that look like?
Ooh, it was a zigzag. It was not.
The fun part.
Yes. Yeah. I have had a very unique path, I guess we could say. So my primary passion growing up was performing arts. So singing, dancing, theater. I wanted to be on Broadway. When I was graduating high school, I was awarded a full scholarship to a school in New York City. It's called the American Musical and Dramatic Academy. So I moved to New York City for 3 years and took that program. And if you've ever seen the movie Fame, like the original,
yes,
show. Yes, yeah. That's kind of like my classes were not pen and paper. They were with your dance bag, or we're getting up and singing, or we're doing stage combat, or we're reading scripts from current soap operas. I remember one time we were in my acting for film and television class, we were given a embargoed script, so one that was not for public use, but all of the teachers there are in the biz, and it was actually a script for The Big Bang Theory. And I didn't know. Yeah, the show was just in pilot season, which is not not public knowledge. So yeah, that was my background. So I kind of flailed along at trying to pursue that. It's a very, very difficult world to break into, obviously. From there, I decided if I couldn't be on television acting, then I could at least be on television reading the news. So I went to school for broadcast journalism in Alberta, 2-year program. I graduated there and I took a job with Global News. And I worked with Global News for a few years out in Alberta before returning to Portage because I had started my family. We moved back to Portage when my daughter was 10 months old. And from there, I've worked in several nonprofit organizations in the city and finally landed with my feet firmly planted at the chamber.
Well, that is impressive. I did not really grasp the full scope of your history until just now. And I could ask you a million questions that probably have nothing to do with you directly, but let's continue on that path. Colin, have you got anything?
Yes, well, that's fascinating. I didn't know that about you, and I'm gonna have to look up some Global News Stefanie Dunn reporting.
They're still in the archives.
They're still in the archives. Okay.
Well, the one thing you did mention was that wasn't public knowledge at the time, but it is now.
You know what? It's way too late. Like
Yeah.
the series
Show is over.
yeah, the show is over. It's long over. I don't even remember the teacher's name who gave it to me. So yeah.
Oh, that's great.
I forgot that things live on the internet forever.
Yeah.
That stark reminder, Ryan.
Yes. Yeah.
So I've had experience working with you both through my business, through the city. You're a well-known face around Portage, and I know in your previous role. So you're working in your previous role. The job of the executive director of the Portage and District Chamber of Commerce comes open. What went through your mind in the sense that what does Stefanie bring to the Portage Chamber? What was your thought process when you applied for the job? Because I have to say you're doing an excellent job. So
thank you. I appreciate that. I was looking for a new challenge, and I was looking for something to make me a little bit uncomfortable, which this job does. And by that, I mean, politics is not it's not the first thing I Google, right? Like I'm not on, prior to this job, I was not on political blogs. But I started to have to deal with that back when I was working with Global News and have to develop an understanding of it really quickly to be able to speak candidly. And so when this job came open, again, growing up and being so firmly entrenched in the business community, I overheard my dad talking a lot of times, and then my brother had gotten very involved in the business as well. And so I just thought, okay, I feel that what I can bring to the table is an understanding of what it means to own a business and have to fight every day for dollars to stay in Portage, right? We're so close to 2 major centers, which is amazing in so many different ways, but in other ways, it does really hurt our business community. So I knew from that perspective that I could bring a voice to both what the consumers want of Portage la Prairie and also what the business community really needs in terms of supports from me. In terms of the challenge, I really just wanted to learn new things. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to be challenged. I wanted to have a voice at a bigger table than I was currently having. And, being able to go and speak to ministers and speak to the premier and write letters and have conversations with our many levels of government is really, really empowering. It's not something that I ever thought I would feel confident in doing, but I'm not afraid to admit that I don't know something, and I think that's a really important piece. But I can say I've learned leaps and bounds, and I'm continue every day to want to learn something and just to really be a strong representative of Portage la Prairie and small business, and also a woman in what has, what is still kind of stigmatized to be a mostly male dominated world. So it was definitely scary when I got offered the role. I was like, oh God, I have to do it now. Yeah, I truly felt it would be a good fit for me, and that I was also a good fit for the chamber.
That's great. And you kind of touched on it a little bit, but what would you say is the most rewarding part of your role that you do now?
I think the most rewarding part is what those things that really aren't public facing, right? Like when we send a letter to a minister or to advocate for business needs, and then we get that response, and then we're being updated by that government on the changes that they're implementing, or that they hadn't seen things from the perspective we're presenting. So I think that's really rewarding. I went to my first Canadian Chamber conference this fall in Halifax, and I was truly overwhelmed and humbled by the power of the chamber and by all the voices in that room that were just so knowledgeable and so passionate about their community, about Canadian economy, about their local economy. So I think what's most rewarding are those wins that might not be the ones that are blasted on the homepage of Portage Online or our local newspaper, but they're definitely wins for us behind the scenes. So knowing that we have an impact is just really, really exciting and has been so rewarding.
That's excellent. I often find, you mentioned going to the conference in Halifax. I often find not that you stall out, but when you go to one of these conferences, we attend quite a few of them with the city. Mm-hmm. It pumps your tires a little bit, and then you come back and you're just like, I'm going to change the world now.
Absolutely.
And those things are important for information, for networking, but that's the more valuable thing that I take away from them, is just like this new life that you have in you when you come back from something like that.
Yes, I completely agree, Colin. That was exactly what it felt like. It was like, oh, like the issues our community faces, like we're not siloed in that, right? Like, right. And so being able to resource share and just even water cooler talk, right? Like, what are you hearing from your business owners? What are you hearing from your nonprofits? What's your MLA? What's your MP saying? Like, how are you advocating for this? So I think just knowing how much support was out there that I hadn't quite tapped into yet, being so new in the role, that and coming back and just being like, I'm going to change the world. Like, yeah. I was like, all right, Portage.
Well, and you quickly realize, like, on my end, I realized with the public safety portfolio, you realize, okay, other places have the same issues. And then you also realize, whoa, I'm glad I'm not that municipality. You realize maybe your issues aren't as great as other places. And you would probably find that too with the networking with the different chambers. Obviously, small business in Portage has its challenges, and we're lucky to have the chamber help hold our hand through the, so to speak, hold our hand through these challenges. And but yeah, you must see that other chambers, have a whole other set of challenges that you're glad that maybe you don't have.
Definitely. I mean, and there are some problems that I wish I did have, right? Such as, like, oh, I have so many members, I can't juggle them all. And I'm like, oh, 100. Like, but yeah, I think just, and the lack of competition, right? Everybody at this conference and within the chamber network is so willing to share resources. Yeah, like you said, Colin, for problems that might not be as big as ours, but for problems that are bigger than ours, and then you just tailor it. So yeah, I think definitely just going into that conference with an open mind, or even just, you know, in my day-to-day activity with an open mind, and just letting people tell their own stories, and realizing that we all have work to do. It's a spectrum, right? It's always going to ebb and flow. So yeah, it was really amazing, and definitely rejuvenated
Awesome.
me. Yeah.
I feel the same way when we get back from our conferences, Colin. We come back with some amazing ideas and some things to implement.
Mhm.
Stefanie, I will say that I feel the chamber is in a better place now than I have ever seen it. To be honest, I'm very, very happy with what's happening there. And I'm not going to ask you questions like, what's your favorite restaurant? Because that's going to put you on the spot. And it's going to maybe alienate some chamber members that may not appreciate your answer very much. But I will ask you a couple of questions kind of related to that, just about the city.
Okay.
That if you're bringing someone to town, what's the must-see thing that you would show them or send them to?
The must-see thing in our community. I mean, that's seasonal as well, right? I do have a friend who comes to Portage specifically from the city for Stride Place. She cannot believe what we've got in our community, and her boys just love it. And so I do think I would be remiss if I didn't mention Stride Place and the amazing facility that it is. I think we have a truly amazing shopping community here. I mean, we have like all these adorable boutique stores that, again, like they collaborate so that they're not bringing in the same thing from XYZ supplier, right? And I think that's huge. And I don't think that happens in a lot of other communities. So we have great shopping here as well. I have people that, again, I know people that come into town and they're like, "Oh, I have to stop at XYZ store," or "I always go here for this." So definitely our facilities, definitely our shopping. And then I think I think our city and our active transportation committee and the parks committee have just done an amazing job on continuing to develop those designated areas, right? Our active transportation pathways are fantastic. Just you know, I know there's work to be done, as there always is, but I think that is definitely a must see as well, and certainly something worth bragging over. I will also add that when I come to the table in certain meetings, other bigger centers are very envious of our water and wastewater. So,
Oh, and they should be.
right? I like bring a bottle of water and I'm like, I will sell you this Portage water for
Best tasting water in Western Canada.
Yeah, they're truly envious of our capacity. So it's a weird bragging point, but those in infrastructure and levels of government totally get it. They're like, yeah, you.
Just bragging about your wastewater.
I know, right?
So because you're one of the people that we've got on here that actually has roots in Portage throughout your life, what do you think is one of the major changes you've noticed, or the most significant changes you've noticed in Portage throughout the years?
Yeah, I think that I would confidently say that there is a resurgence of individuals who grew up here that have either moved back or have just stayed here and committed to being in Portage. And there is such a passion right now for telling our own story as a community. There are so many people coming to the table saying like, you know, like we have got to shout it from the rooftops about what a great place this is to live. housing. We have affordable, we do have affordable housing in terms of the broader spectrum. We have amenities. We have a true sense of community. I have friends who moved here in August, and they're already like every Friday night with the people on their street, they have happy hour. And I'm like, lived on my street for 10 years. I'm not in, if there is a group chat, I'm not in it. So I will truly say that I think there are young people committed to being here intentionally. And that's a big change I see. I feel like when I was growing up, everyone couldn't wait to get to the big city. And now I'm definitely seeing people who see the value in a more tight-knit community and are all collaboratively working together to raise Portage up.
Yeah, I think that's important. We always had this question about how do we keep the youth here? And I think that's not the key. It's how do we get them to come back?
Right. Well, and I think, I don't quote Councillor Preston Meyer very often, but he has said on a couple of occasions, and maybe this isn't his exact quote, but he says, I encourage the high school kids to leave, to see that the grass is not greener on the other side, to see what we actually have here and grow an appreciation for it. Because I was born and raised here as well. I left right after I graduated grade 12 because I had it in my head that anywhere else is better than here, right? Yep. And you realize really quickly that there's a certain charm, a certain something about Portage that I can't quite put my finger on that drew me right back in only a few years later. And especially now that I'm a part, a larger part of my community with my role on council, I wouldn't change it for anything.
Mm-hmm. Well, and I think there is some truth in that. I will not give the credit to Councillor Meyer.
But, you're right, I won't either.
But there is truth in that sentiment where we also want people to come back with fresh eyes and with fresh ideas. So you do have to go away, right? The saying, like, I can't miss you if you won't leave. Like,
yeah.
Kind of like you said, Colin, like you do need to leave, and we want you to get life experience and then come back with fresh eyes, fresh ideas, and say, oh, I was in this community, reminded me of Portage, they're trying this. And we want our youth and our young adults to move here ready to contribute and fired up to see change here and be passionate about the community. So if they need to leave to do that, do so momentarily, but come back.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we ready for some fun ones, Colin?
Let's do it.
All right, Stefanie, I might have asked you this on a previous version of a podcast that we did together, but I'm going to ask you again anyway. Best book you've ever read?
Ooh, like ever?
Your favorite?
Okay, I will tell you guys, I am an incredibly fast reader. I can read a book in 2 days. Like, it's insane. Like, my budget for books is embarrassing. I think I will say, just with this phase of my life, Atomic Habits.
Ooh, good choice.
Yeah. I think there's still a titch of a stigma when you go into the self-help section of a bookstore, right? You're like, I don't want everyone to see me in this.
It's a weird title for a section to still have self-help, because it means a little something different than it used to.
Yes, especially when you think about the type of books that are actually coming out. But I was like, hey man, I'm already like, I'm single, I have 3 cats, like I gotta get in and out of this section so quick. But a lot of the theories that are introduced in this book, I think it's not preachy and it's not unachievable. So I would really recommend it.
All right. Favorite movie of all time?
Grease.
Yeah,
Ooh.
I can see that.
Yeah, no, I like that, you know.
Yeah,
And it makes a lot more sense now that you've given us some more about your history.
Yes, exactly.
No, I totally understand that.
Mhm.
And the hardest question of the day, what's the best piece of advice you've ever received?
Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to advice for.
Ooh.
Ooh.
I
I'm
did
gonna
not send
start
her
writing
that
these down.
question. I did not send her that question ahead of time, but that
No.
was very good.
Isn't that a good?
Say it one more time.
Don't take criticism. Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay.
I assume you heard that. Don't take criticism from someone you wouldn't go to for advice.
Love it.
It's good, hey?
Perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And
Oh.
I tell my girls that too. Like I tell my daughters that too. They're 7 and 10. And I always say, I'm like, would you go to this person with a problem? And they're like, no. And I'm like, then why are we listening?
Right. I'm going to
Well,
use that tonight with my daughter, actually.
I'm going to say that to somebody today.
Yep.
Some random.
Ryan's just doling
Hey,
out
you.
unsolicited advice.
And I'm going to get it tattooed across my chest later.
You know what? We don't need proof.
Yeah.
I believe you, Colin. I believe you don't need to see the tattoo.
Yeah. No, that's a great one.
Colin, you got anything else?
No, that's it. That's it for me. Thank you very much for coming on. We really appreciate it. And you are the second guest that the Selling Portage podcast has ever had. And when we were throwing around names, yours was one that that was right up at the top of the list there. And we wanted to chat with you, not only because of your role, but because you are born and raised Portage La Prairie, and you are a true champion for our city. So for Ryan and I, you know, with our roles within our community, that's very important to us. So thank you very much for coming on.
Thank you both so much. I really appreciate those kind words, Colin. And I feel equally as inspired by you both as well. You've been amazing champions, and thank you so much for all your work, both professionally in your different roles and both personally. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Stefanie, and thanks for coming on. We appreciate you. What can you tell people? How do they find you? How do they get more information on the Portage and District Chamber of Commerce?
Yeah, you can call or text 857-7778. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram. Certainly send me a DM there, or our website, which is portagechamber.com.
Excellent.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a great one.
Yeah, you too.